This is the Big Deal Podcast, brought to you and powered by New Covenant Baptist Church in Albertville, Alabama. And on this podcast, we're asking the question, what's the big deal about all things Bible, theology, and culture? I'm Justin.
I'm Brad.
Welcome to the Big Deal. How you doing, man?
I've got a little sinus issue.
Yeah.
I sound like I've been going through a pack a day over here.
You do. You need to start singing some Chris Stapleton now.
I'm fixing to.
Smooth.
I've seen my share of broken AOs.
There you go. I got a question for you.
Ooh.
I've been
Right to it.
watching the news and stuff.
Oh,
It's kinda
no.
funny.
Stop doing that.
Yeah. So if you were in charge of DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, you know this thing that's out there right now, it's like doing stuff. What organization, administration in the government would you fire immediately and stop
IRS.
it? No more?
No more.
Does that mean we don't have to pay taxes anymore?
No, we have. Yes, no more taxes.
Hey,
if you vote for me, no more taxes.
so we've collapsed. The government.
I think what we should do is just eliminate income tax and raise the other taxes.
Yeah.
Just make it where you know
income
what you got to
tax
pay.
is dirty, isn't it?
It's dumb.
I hate income tax.
But the thing is,
You know what's worse? Self-employment tax.
yes.
Oh my goodness.
Well, you really can't eliminate income tax because it's graduated. Here's the deal. Here's what happens. So people say, I want a flat tax, right? So if you get rid of income tax, you have a flat tax. And gajillions of dollars come through income tax from rich people mostly. A flat tax taxes the poor heavier than the rich.
Okay, they end up paying more money
Because
they needed that more.
Because what happens is 10% of $1 million is a lot of money, 100,000, but they still got 900 G's left.
Yeah.
10% of a guy making 50,000 is only $5,000, but that $5,000 is a much bigger deal when you're making 50 than it is when you're making $1 million.
Yeah.
So a flat tax sounds quote fair, but what happens is it disproportionately hurts. So if you think about it in groceries, if you got a 20-cent tax on milk or something, I'm just making it up.
'Cause that's what we do in Alabama. We tax groceries.
Yeah, so you tax milk 20 cents a gallon. And if you eliminate income tax, you're going to have to tax everything, right? So the guy who makes almost nothing's paying 20 cents, and the guy who makes $1 billion's paying 20 cents.
Yeah.
Who is that the bigger hit to?
Oh, yeah.
It's the poor guy.
Yeah.
So somehow we got to get that money away from the rich
So
people.
your goal is just to fire the IRS.
I think we should fire the IRS.
Yeah.
And if we keep income tax, just make it easy. Like, if you make this, pay this.
Yeah.
Stop making it a mystery. They do it all over the world. Like, I should not have to do my own income tax and then worry that they're going to look at my homework like I'm in 5th grade and call me and say, you did your homework wrong, redo it, and we're going to fine you.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, why didn't you just do my homework in the first place? Because it's stupid.
Oh, yeah. That's the whole deal with the IRS, isn't it?
So did I do good?
That's fine. Yeah, I was just like kind of
Can I get rid of the IRS?
I was like, I wonder what most people would choose if they're, and there's like, who do we get to like slice and dice, man? I'm gonna choose these folks.
Here's the thing. I feel sorry for the guy who actually has to balance the budget.
You know what I would actually do?
What would you do?
I would make all government positions unpaid, like elected officials unpaid. Unpaid. You want to be a senator? You're unpaid.
Yeah.
And slash that, and maybe that might make them do more insider trading.
It would do two things.
Yeah.
You couldn't be a senator unless you were rich.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. Never mind.
Yeah.
We're not going to do that.
Yeah.
Oh no. I heard this other thing. This is what I do. I'd make a rule about I didn't have anything to do with Doge. Never mind. I don't know what I would do.
Well, see, the thing is, no matter where you start slashing, you're hurting somebody.
Yeah.
And I don't care which program. There's only
that's the thing right now.
There's only so many fluff programs.
Yeah.
There's only so many fluff things you can find.
Yeah.
There's probably some corruption in there, and you could find it. And
All right.
Look, I saved $1 million.
Here we go. This is very quick. Which branch of the military would you drop? You're over. No more.
None of them. I love them all.
I don't think that counts as an answer. You have to choose one to eliminate.
I'm sorry, Space Force. You're gone.
Space Force? No.
They've only got 25,000 people, man.
I'm going Coast Guard, man.
You'd be surprised how much work they do.
I know it, but I want Space Force.
Dude, you know how much cartel and smuggling is kept away by the Coast Guard?
I think the Navy can handle it.
Okay.
You can give it to the Navy.
So, but what would happen is the Navy's already maxed out, so they would just have to pay money.
Well, they would just absorb the Coast Guard. The Navy would absorb the Coast Guard.
But then you hadn't saved any money.
Look, I'm just saying. I didn't actually. This second question wasn't about saving money. It was just which one do you eliminate?
Oh, I thought we were trying to save money. I thought that's what Doge was doing because we're running this majillion.
I changed the question.
You're messing with me.
Yeah.
The thing is, man, no matter what
it's Army. Army, you're gone.
That's the biggest branch.
Yeah,
Ooh, it's like 1 million people.
It probably actually would be Space Force because it was already there. Just the Air Force was doing it, right?
Yeah. And, you can't say like Navy because it's
boats.
You can't say Marines because they'll kill you.
That's true. Shout out to Daniel Dews.
Yeah. Don't come for
our
me.
Soul Marine.
I'm in
church.
Doge. I didn't. Now, do I think that there's government waste spending in the military? Holy moly, yes.
Oh, is there a bunch of it?
We need to get some oversight in that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, Brad for president 2028.
I just feel bad because there's a bajillion dollar deficit. You can't get there without cutting things people want and need. And I don't know that as a country we're prepared for that.
It's hard to say no. It's hard to say no.
Mm-hmm. Especially once you've started doing it.
Oh, I know it. It's like
and people are like, hey, man, it's Social Security. It's actually not. Social Security is solvent. We put in enough every year to pay for Social Security.
Is that right?
Yes, but the government steals it. And so what happens is the minute Social Security goes into the government, they take it to pay for other stuff.
Oh, those dirty dogs.
And they leave us with a big old pile of IOUs.
That big old pile.
If we had just left Social Security alone and said it's against the law to take Social Security, we would have trillions of dollars in Social Security right now. Trillions.
I'm tired of talking about the government. I regret my question. Let's talk about the Bible now.
Okay.
That made me upset. I'm like, with trillions gone. We're trillions in debt.
When you retired, you could be pulling a check for like 15, 20 grand a month if we hadn't stole it.
Wow.
People would be so excited to get 60. We'd probably start paying them out at 55.
Yeah, just to get rid of the money.
Just be like, we got to do something with this money.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Rolling out our ears. We could, yeah.
Did you hear about them thinking about doing stimulus checks based on what they save from Doge?
Yes.
That's so funny.
They were like, give it back to the people.
We got to give back to the people.
Don't do that.
Don't. They need to pay off.
Well, I actually thought about this.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about it. So let's say
Are we going to talk about it?
Every
Okay.
American could get 6 grand, 7 grand back from Doge. I think they shouldn't give them the money. I think they should say, what debt can we put this toward? What personal debt can we service?
Yeah.
Because the average American is carrying debt. Average is like $6,800 in credit card debt alone. Mm-hmm. They're paying interest on $6,800. So if you could take Doge money and say, what credit card can we zero out for you? Mm-hmm. That would be good. But what would happen is you would give it to everybody. We would go on a spending spree.
Yeah.
And we would drive up inflation. That's what would happen. And everything would get more expensive. If you use the money to pay down debt, inflation would not go up.
Yeah.
People would have more resources because it would be a slow burn.
There's no way anyone would be doing that, man.
Nobody would do it.
I want to go to Target.
That's what I'm saying. The world can't get right is because we're all stupid.
That is true.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about Exodus. So we're in chapter 24. We've been through the book of the covenant. The Lord just told them, he's about to send this angel with them to kind of go into the land of Canaan, the promised land with them. And we went on like a 40-minute rabbit trail last week.
On angels.
No, we basically ended up just talking about Satan.
Yeah, we did.
Which is fine. And but that's basically what's happening. Like, God's going to send this angel. They're headed to the promised land. Now, if you're familiar with the story of the Bible, you will know that this doesn't go well. And so your expectation is like, you're just kind of waiting for that. Oh, but they don't go into the promised land. But you're kind of supposed to just like sit with this because as the story is told, they are still going directly to the promised land.
Yeah.
There isn't a detour, a 40-year detour here. This angel that's talked about here is going to lead them straight into the promised land and slowly push out all the people with hornets or with stuff like that. You know, it's like they're not going to have to do much fighting.
Did you guys ever sing that? Oh, you didn't grow up in church. Right. In olden days church, we used to sing this song, "I'm Bound for the Promised Land." Did y'all sing that?
I don't think so.
I'm bound for the promised land. No, oh, who will come and go with me? I'm bound for the promised land. I thought about that.
There's a song by, do you know Indelible Grace music?
Inedible?
Indelible.
Well, that's a different.
Indelible Grace. You never heard of that?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh,
I just wanted to say Inedible Grace.
That is true. They like rewrite hymns, and I think Sandra McCracken was with them for a while.
McCracken.
Yeah, that's her name.
Sounds like a monster. You don't know who that comes out of the ocean, man.
So she sings that. She
it's
wrote
a
that,
Scottish Kraken.
She sings that song we sang yesterday.
I'm sure she's awesome.
We will feast in the house of Zion.
Yeah, if she's listening, I'm a fan because I love We Will Feast in the House.
Yeah, that's a great song.
I'm sorry I made fun of your name.
Yeah. She's a nice lady. Yeah,
probably is, but she is a Scottish sea monster.
McCracken sounds quite
the
Scottish.
Kraken.
Yeah,
Mick
Kraken.
That's what I'm saying. It's a Scottish sea monster.
Mick stand for the?
I think it's son of Mac.
Oh,
yeah, son of Kraken.
That's problematic for her. Mm-hmm. She's a woman.
Hey, Williamson. What do you think that is?
So they're going to the promised land. They have this angel of the Lord that has the name of the Lord in him, and they're headed there, right? And so they're going to get some instructions now. And something that we mentioned too was like how large the land is. This is like way bigger than what ends up being Israel. Like it says in verse 31, "I'll set your borders from the Red Sea to the Mediterranean Sea, and from the wilderness to the Euphrates River." And so a perspective, that's like the entire Middle East Peninsula, Saudi Arabian Peninsula.
The Levant.
Yeah, the entire thing from Egypt, the northern part of Egypt, all the way up to Turkey.
North and west, right?
Yeah.
Of Egypt.
Yep. Yeah, it's like, the northeastern corner of Egypt, from that all the way up basically to the Euphrates, which kind of stretches across from where Iraq is to Turkey. Yep. So a huge area is supposed to be this promised land. And when you look on the map today, you see this little tiny sliver of Israel. That's what they end up actually inhabiting.
Yes. It's like 4 counties in Albertville.
Yeah, it is. It's like, it's a tiny.
I'm sorry, Alabama.
In Alabama. Yeah, it's like the northeastern quarter of Alabama, basically. Yeah. It's like probably the size. And so they're going in, and then this thing happens in chapter 24 that we're going to read about this morning, called the covenant ceremony. Mm-hmm. Right. And so I'll read a little bit of it and we can talk about it. It says in chapter 24, verse 1, it says, "Then he said to Moses, God said to Moses, go up to the Lord, you and Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, and 70 of Israel's elders." And I guess it's the angel who said this, right? Yeah. The angel said to Moses, "Go up to the Lord, you and Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, and 70 of Israel's elders, and bow and worship at a distance. Moses alone is to approach the Lord, but the others are not to approach, and the people are not to go up with him." Moses came and told the people all the commands of the Lord and all the ordinances. Then all the people responded with a single voice, "We will do everything that the Lord has commanded." We've heard that before. Liars! And Moses wrote down all the words of the Lord. He rose early the next morning and set up an altar and 12 pillars for the 12 tribes of Israel at the base of the mountain. Then he sent out young Israelite men, and they offered burnt offerings and sacrificed bulls as fellowship offerings to the Lord. Moses took half the blood and set it in basins. The other half of the blood he splattered on the altar. Then he took the covenant scroll and read it aloud to the people. They responded, "We will do and obey all that the Lord has commanded." So, a couple things going on.
Something weird happens after this too.
Yeah, it was just talking about the time setting. So, seems to be like the narrative about him getting the law and stuff that we just read about.
Yeah.
And so, what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. Because it says he gets all the law and ordinances and stuff. And so we just got the book of the covenant, I guess. Mm-hmm. This is part of him getting that, or the tabernacle instructions and stuff like that.
10 Commandments.
The 10 Commandments. And so this is kind of like the narrative about him getting the law and what all happened around that. And then you have, he doesn't go up there alone.
No.
On the mountain.
Nadab and Abihu and 70
and
elders
Aaron.
and Aaron, yeah.
And the
Nadab
elders.
and Abihu are Aaron's sons.
Yeah,
oldest.
they're like the priestly heirs.
Yes.
Right. And so they go up on the mountain, and at this point, it's still like just supposed to be firstborns.
Yeah.
That are going to become the priesthood, right?
Yeah.
Not the tribe of Levi. And so they go up there, and they're going to do what? What are they doing up there?
They're going to eat.
They're going to eat. They're going to eat with
The
God.
Lord loves to have a feast.
Yeah, and
And
that's
what's weird in this thing is, man, like God shows up and eats with them.
he does. It is bizarre.
It is, and it's like he was standing on a sapphire. What does it say? Oh,
Where's that at? We're not there yet.
Yeah.
We hadn't read that
Verse
part.
10.
The lapis lazuli. We haven't read that yet. Yeah, I just want to talk about like him getting the scroll and the covenant scroll and all this stuff, and they start making sacrifices.
Yeah, it's weird because we don't really know what that is. I guess it was the Ten Commandments.
The covenant
and stuff
scroll.
written down, but
Yeah. It's like it seems like it might be the book of the covenant and the Ten Commandments and whatnot. But there's this weird thing where he's about to like smash tablets.
Yes.
Right? He's gonna go up further, and so it's kind of unclear what he has right now in his hand, what the law is. But anyways, he reads it out to everyone, and they're like, "Yeah, we will do and obey all that the Lord has commanded." This is like the mantra of the Israelite people right now, and they just don't know themselves very well.
They're fixing to mess up big time.
Yeah, and that's the setup, I think, as the story is told.
What's sad is that God has come down and is eating with them. We got to get to that place.
Yeah, we got to get to that part. Go to verse 8. Moses took the blood, splattered it on the people, and said, "This is the blood of the covenant that the Lord has made with you concerning all these words." And that's something to think about. Like, how in the world, like this is hard to get to if you're a modern person looking back in the Bible, you're reading through this on your own, and you're like, man, why are they getting splattered with blood?
Yeah.
That's a weird thing to do, right?
Yeah.
What does that mean? Why would he do that?
Well, because all the covenants were ratified with blood.
Yeah.
And it is, we talked about it in Genesis when Abraham makes that offering that he cuts in half and they walk between it.
Yeah.
The covenant is the penalty for breaking it is death. The solemn oath that they've made is an oath with their lives.
Yeah.
That they will keep this covenant or die.
Yeah. The word covenant means to cut
Yes, to cut.
in Hebrew. Yeah. And so that's like the meaning behind like all the blood is like, well, this is what you deserve. You deserve your blood to be flowing.
Yeah.
And the reason he like sprays all the stuff with blood, everything gets blood on it, right? He splattered it on the people. He ends up, he splatters it on the altars later on and everything. Actually right here in the basins, he set it in basins, the other half, but he splattered on the altar. It's like there's this kind of like strange like holiness thing that it's involved with the blood, and like whenever they have the tabernacle built, that's what they do. They go in and they shake blood out on the Ark of the Covenant and everything, right?
Yeah.
During the Day of Atonement. And people, when people come to confess their sins in the temple, they get blood put on them,
Yeah. And when the priests go to offer, they put blood on their thumb, on their ear.
Yeah, they're like, it's head to toe. I covered it.
Well, there's a bunch of things to say about it.
Yeah.
One is the failure to keep the covenant results in death.
Yeah.
And two, the splattering of blood kind of is this is serious.
Yeah.
So like if I went to the bank and took out my mortgage and they chopped off a chicken's head and threw blood on me, they were like, if you don't pay this, man, this is what's going to happen to you. Man, people be making their house payment.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
It's like, this is like weirdly
You can't get away
scary.
from the death involved in like sin when that's going on. And, and so if you were an Israelite person and you had sinned grievously, right? And you're come to the temple and you're unclean, you're ritually unclean and everything. And the solution is that, you're going to sacrifice this animal and you're going to get blood put on all over you. And now you're clean.
Yeah.
You don't feel very clean with blood on you. But there's this association, this kind of like theological association with life and death in blood
Yeah,
altogether.
the gravity of it. So imagine
Yeah.
You walking down from the mountain of, or like from the temple.
Yeah.
You haven't had there. It's not like you just go in the shower.
Yeah.
So you're like walking down the road and you just got blood splattered all over you.
Yep.
Man, this guy's screwed up.
Yeah. It should be me
He
bleeding.
he should be dead.
I should be the one bleeding.
Yeah.
Come here. I got someone else's blood all over me.
Yes.
And I think that's an important thing to think about for us, like modern readers. We have the New Testament. We have Jesus. You take the Lord's Supper, you know, and instead of having the blood of a goat or something put on you to remind you of sin and the consequences of it, we have the cup. And we're reminded, and we take it in ourselves, right? We drink it, and we're reminded of the sacrifice of Christ in that way. And it finds its roots here in the Old Testament story.
We broke the covenant,
Yeah.
and somebody had to pay, and somebody does.
Yeah, and it, once for all keeps on. You know,
Yeah.
you know, it's we don't have to do nothing. We don't have like a stockyard full of animals behind our church that we have to slaughter. You know, on a Sunday morning.
Right.
We have Welch's.
Yeah. The wages of sin is death.
It is. And that's the thing, man. That's just in lo and behold, we just read the Book of the Covenant. Everyone has to die because of their sin.
Yeah,
basically.
I mean, people read Romans and see the wages of sin is death, and they think he's talking New Testament language. He's talking Old Testament language too.
It's death.
It's
man.
everywhere.
And you know, we're about to read here in a second about the tabernacle and how beautiful it is and all this kind of stuff. It's pretty and all these things, and like it seems majestic and beautiful and, you know, pristine, I guess the way to put it. And the very first day that it gets used, it gets covered in gore and blood.
And smoke.
And smoke. It's nasty in there. And, like, that's the image you're supposed to have. Man, if you were having to go to the tabernacle, that's a nasty place.
Nasty. Especially on a feast day.
Yeah.
There were thousands of animals sacrificed.
Yep,
The
thousands.
blood
Golly.
everywhere.
Blood everywhere. Smells like death.
Like death.
And man, like we kind of lack that appreciation for sin and the connection with sin.
Yesterday, I had a sheep die. Well, it
I'm
died
sorry.
before yesterday. It died a week ago.
Oh goodness!
And I found it in the back of the pasture. I don't know if it's a week, maybe 3 days. And death stinks.
Smells awful.
It's awful.
Ew.
Ooh-wee.
And that's what the tabernacle smelled like. And so they're getting blood splattered all over them, and they're being reminded of death and the reality of sin. And they go up. So Moses went up with these guys, Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu, and 70 of Israel's elders, and they saw the God of Israel. They see him.
That's so wild.
That is wild. That like never. What do they call that? A theophany?
Yeah.
Yeah. That never happens. Like,
Theophany means they saw God.
Yeah.
It means an appearance of
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
This doesn't ever happen.
Yeah.
This is weird.
It
because
is.
it says here that they saw the God of Israel, and under his feet there appeared to be a pavement of sapphire. You may have lapis lazuli.
Yeah.
And anybody that's played Minecraft knows that's that beautiful blue stone.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a blue sapphire, as clear as the sky itself. So it's like a big.
He's like standing in the sky.
He's standing in the sky on blue pavement.
Yep.
And they eat together.
Yep.
So what is that about? I can tell you, but I want you to tell me.
What do you mean? What about?
Why is he here?
Why is God here?
What is happening in this passage? Why does he show up to them? And
he wants to eat with
and
them.
it says, he did not stretch out his hand against the nobles and the sons of Israel, and they saw God and they ate and drank.
I know it. That's wild. Like that's the first thing he said about it, and he didn't kill him.
He didn't kill him.
He didn't even do it.
No. Why? Why does it say this? What is happening
You
in this
tell
passage?
me, because I feel like you have a place you want to go.
So it's we talked a little bit about it last week. This is the cranking of the millennial machine.
Oh yeah.
So
What does that mean?
So here's what it means. So what was going on in the Garden of Eden? It says that Adam and Eve were in there and they sinned, right? And God came in the cool of the day to walk with them, as was his habit.
Yeah.
So God dwelt with men
Yeah.
and women
Oh yeah, I know
in
where
the
you're going
Garden
with
of
this.
Eden,
Yeah.
right? So they hung out together.
Yeah.
And then they sinned. And he said, you got to get out.
Yep.
You got to get out. I'm going to guard the way to paradise. You can't come back. And what is paradise? It's dwelling with God.
That's right.
That's paradise.
Yeah.
And so he makes a promise. He says, look, one day we're going to squash Satan. We're going to squash this beef.
Yep.
And we're going to be reconciled. And so off they go. And we're waiting. Everything about the Exodus, everything about Genesis, everything about the Old Testament is waiting for this moment where we can be back together.
Yeah, and this is a glimpse of it, isn't it?
Yes, it's a glimpse of it. And we see these glimpses throughout the prophets and Daniel. We see it all the time. It's the kingdom of God's like a rock falls out of heaven, fills the whole earth.
Yeah.
He sees the Son of Man approach the Ancient of Days and take the scroll and all these things.
Yep.
And so we're waiting for this moment. And because we have spoilers and we know it's Jesus, you don't get as excited about this. But what's happening is they are going back to the land that Adam and Eve are exiled from symbolically. They're going back to the garden.
The promised land is the garden.
The promised land is the garden. And so what God is doing here is he's foreshadowing.
He's telling me, like, this is what it's going to be like.
We're
in
fixing
the
to hang out.
This is you're on the edge of the cliff of the Garden of Eden, 3.0 right now.
We're fixing to hang out together. I'm going to walk with you again. Yep. And so when I say the millennial machine is cranking up, when I say that, I'm not trying to talk about dispensationalism or covenantalism or literal 1,000 years or what. What I mean is the ushering into the kingdom of God when man and God will walk together again.
Yeah.
And so it's very hopeful.
Yeah.
Like you think in Exodus, the story's almost over.
It's about to be. It's
cranking.
Yeah.
It's like, brr, 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 and God says, hey, come on, let's eat. We're going to hang out.
Yeah.
You're fixing to go into promised land. Guys, I'm going to give you some rules. And we're going to be together again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't get that. Most people don't get the opportunity to read the Bible from front to back without any kind of presuppositions, without knowing. Mm-hmm. But if you're able to do that and you're able to like read through the story and not know that there's 1,000 more pages left, right? And when you get to this, you might think this is it. This is the end. This is like the conclusion, the final conclusion.
God's bringing them back.
He's bringing them back.
Slavery, just like he told Abraham, 400 years. The people of the land have filled up their sins, and God's going to judge them, and he's going to bring his people back, and God is going to walk with them again in the promised land. Yeah. The Tigris and the Euphrates.
Here's a nice little rabbit trail to go on and think about this. So sometimes, it just comes up that is this like a genuine, is this a genuine possible conclusion? If you're reading through,
yes and no,
you know what I mean. Yeah. But sometimes is God like playing psych with him or something? Like this isn't. He knows this isn't really it.
No, he's not playing psych, but he knows it won't work.
Yeah. Okay.
So
it's like a sincere offer.
You start getting weird. It starts getting weird when you realize that God knows everything.
Yeah.
He knows that they're going to sin. He knows that they're going to fail to go into the land. He knows they're going to make an idol before Moses gets back down the mountain.
Yeah.
And so part of you thinks, well, this supper here is disingenuous. Yeah. It's not real because he knows in a few days that this is going to fall apart. That's a bad way to think about time, and it's a bad way to think about God. Actually, to me, it's more tragic.
Yeah.
This way, because God is here, like the Father, and he is eating with his children, and he knows in 40 days they're going to blow it. They're going to blow it, but I mean it. Mm-hmm. If they wouldn't, I would be with them.
Yeah.
But he knows they're going to.
He knows they're going to.
But the offer is sincere.
Yeah. And it's an important thing to think about because sometimes Jesus is talked about like he's God's plan B or C or something. Like Israel was God's plan A, Abraham was God's plan A, or Israel was God's plan A, and they just stunk it up. They couldn't do it. They never were successful. Mm-mm. And
he has to do it himself.
I know it. It sounds like when it's put like that, it sounds like God failed with them. Like he had a bad idea. That's not it.
No,
right?
He lets them, he lets them go their way. Here's the thing. To me, it's like if you talk to this dad and he has a child that is addicted to drugs and they've disappointed him over and over again. And you find out he's let him come back home.
Yeah.
And you talk to the dad and you say, hey man, they're gonna do this again. They're going to steal from you again, and they're going to do these drugs again. They're going to leave. Mm-hmm. And the dad looks at you and says, I know.
Yeah, for sure.
I know.
Yeah.
But he's going to stay with me now because he's my son.
Yeah.
And when he does it, then he'll be kicked out, and he'll have to go do his own thing. But right now, I'm giving him a chance.
Yeah.
That he's not going to take.
Yeah. I mean, in even like a less kind of severe situations, like anyone that's had kids, like, that the joy you take in your kids, like today, is not based on the reality or disreality of failures to come in the future.
Oh yeah.
Like, you're not, you're having fun eating ice cream with your daughter or son or something.
Yeah.
It's like, you're not doing that because you think he's never or she's never going to do anything wrong.
Yeah.
Like, that's insanity.
Yeah.
And
You can't live that way.
no, but they people want to kind of like box God up like that
Yes,
because
they do.
he's all knowing. I'm pretty close to all knowing with Evie. I
Yeah.
know she's gonna mess up tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. You even know. I can tell when your kids. You get to know them good. It's like not only do I know that they will sin, I know when they're about to.
Oh yeah.
I can tell when kids come home from school. It's like this is probably going to be a bad day.
Yeah.
We're fixing to have problems.
Yeah.
And I don't want to, but I see where this is going.
Yeah.
And so you say, "How was your day?" And they start with the lip. They give you the little attitude. It's like, "You've chosen poorly."
You've chosen poorly.
Yeah. Our kids have no idea how spoiled they could be if they just did right.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
God says the same thing.
I know.
I'm sure
It.
does.
So
yeah.
I think we don't realize, we think because God knows the future and it cannot be otherwise, then he can't be sincere here.
Yeah.
But he is sincere,
That's right.
even though he knows it's not going to work.
Yep.
And knows it can't work, and it may be better in the end that it didn't work.
Yep.
But at this moment, if they all said, "We'll do it," and they did it, he would make it happen. Mm-hmm. He would make it happen.
Yep. So he goes on, and so they're all eating supper with the Lord, and the Lord said to Moses, and Moses is going to go up the next level. He's come up to me on the mountain and stay there, so that I may give you the stone tablets with the law and the commandments. This is that important part I've written for their instruction. So Moses arose with his assistant Joshua and went up the mountain of God. So Joshua goes with him, don't he?
A little ways.
Little ways, yeah. He told the elders, "Wait here for us until we return to you. Aaron and Hur are here with you. Whoever has a dispute should go to them." When Moses went up the mountain, the cloud covered it. The glory of the Lord settled on Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it for 6 days. On the seventh day, he called to Moses from the cloud. They're just waiting around, I guess.
Yeah.
For 6 days. The appearance of the Lord's glory to the Israelites was like a consuming fire on the mountaintop. Moses entered the cloud as he went up the mountain, and he remained on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights. Mm-hmm. How about that?
Yeah.
And so what's going on with all that?
A few things maybe.
Uh-huh.
So this is like 90% kind of stuff. When he goes up on the mountain, he kind of has to wait around for 6 days.
Mm-hmm.
You did that with sacrifices. So like, you had to offer a lamb without blemish.
Oh, yeah.
And so you quarantine that thing to make sure it's not limping or got a bad hoof or whatever.
Gotcha.
You separate it from the herd, also or from the flock, so it won't get hurt. And so God is letting Moses sit there for a bit, maybe a time of observation. He's separated from Israel, then from the elders.
Yeah.
Then it's him and Joshua, and then Moses is chosen to go out, as if this is kind of sacrificial language.
Yeah.
And then he waits. And then on the seventh day, on the Sabbath, sort of speculation, but probably the Sabbath, on the seventh day, he goes. He's called in.
Yeah.
And he enters there for 40 days and 40 nights. And 40, and I'm not a numerologist. I do not do number stuff unless it's obvious.
Yeah.
40 is obvious.
Oh, yeah.
40 is sojourn. 40 is difficult. You got 40 days in the cloud.
Yeah.
Jesus fasted in the wilderness, 40 years in the wilderness.
40 days
40,
and nights
40
with the
is a
flood.
time of testing.
It is, yeah.
And it turns out it's not Moses.
Yeah, that's right. Moses isn't the one being tested.
No, it's
Yeah.
Israel that's being tested.
That's
they don't
right.
know it. They think Moses,
Yep.
but he's taken from them the best.
Yep.
Moses is the most humble man on the face of the earth.
Yep.
And he's taken him out of the equation.
Yep.
And he's like, what will they do when you're gone? Mm-hmm. And we've been to find out.
We finna find out.
Yeah.
Because we get a couple
So
chapters.
that's what's going on, the big deal. So God is just waiting.
Yep.
He's just eating supper with him. He's like,
Yep.
we going to crank this machine?
Yep.
I've got the hornets on standby, brother.
Yeah.
And
The
I'm going
hornets
to
aren't
tell
standby.
you what's going to happen. When the hornets come in the land, they're going to leave.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you right now.
Yeah.
I've seen pictures. Have you seen these videos of these massive hornet nests in like Japan and stuff? You've seen the Japanese hornets. We got scared they were coming here.
Oh, the murder hornets or
Murder
something?
hornets.
Is that what
right.
they're called? Yeah.
People call them murder hornets, right?
Yeah.
They build these nests by the gajillions, and these guys have to go in there, and they look like they're going into a nuclear bomb shelter. They've got these leather outfits, and they're cleaning out these nests, and there's quadrillions of these hornets.
Ew.
And I think about that when I read this. If that stuff started invading, buddy, I'm moving.
Yeah. Oh, we're out of here.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm out of here. I will move out in the ocean. This is awful. So, and God's like, I got the hornets on standby. You don't have to lift a finger.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you this land, and we're going to live together. But just sit here a minute.
Yeah.
See what happens.
Oh, gosh.
See if they just said, I'll do it.
Yeah,
I'll
do
keep
it.
all this. They read all the stuff.
Yeah.
You'll love the Lord your God.
And so here's a funny
Nobody
thing
else.
that happens in the narrative. It's interesting. This is a little bit reading between the lines. So a couple chapters ago, right after he gave the 10 Commandments, he got instructions about altars and stuff. And everyone gets to build altars wherever.
Yeah.
And they're simple and cheap and you can sacrifice to God everywhere. And he goes up on the mountain. And Israel's down there waiting for 40 days and 40 nights. And what are the things that the Lord tells him about? He tells him about this tabernacle.
Yeah, you're going to build a tabernacle.
You're going to build this.
You're going to anoint the
And
sons of Aaron.
I wonder if he's thinking like, oh.
Or Moses like, this seems to be a change of plan.
Yeah, that's right. Why do I need all this?
Yeah.
Because when he comes down,
Yeah.
it doesn't look like it's altars in everyone's
Go
house
down,
anymore.
Moses.
Yep.
Nope.
Yep.
Nope. They
So-
build a central altar.
Yeah, it's like, in fact, it's about to get brutal and hard here. And so that's what happens the next couple chapters. You have all the details about the tabernacle. And that's what it seems to be he's talking to him a lot about up there on the mountain. Or that's how it falls in their narrative. He tells him, all the things that he's going to need to get, the offerings to build it, the sanctuary, so that I may dwell among them.
Yeah. Anytime you hear the Lord start spouting out a bunch of laws, either something bad is just about to happen,
Or yep.
something bad just happened.
Yeah.
It's like the my professor used to say, it's like when the dump truck backs up, you start hearing it beep beep beep. You better get out of the way, like somebody's backing up.
Yeah.
That's what the law does.
Yeah.
It's like there's a warning here. Oh no,
Yeah.
something fixes to go wrong.
And, I don't think we necessarily need to go into all the details on the tabernacle. I might put a picture. Here's a picture of it right here, right?
Yeah.
Of what it looks like if you're watching on the podcast.
Yeah.
But I think some things that we could say about is what it's supposed to represent and what they're supposed to be thinking of when they see the tabernacle and what the different pieces are supposed to remind them of. So what if you were to walk into the tabernacle, 4,000 years ago, right? Probably 3,500 years ago. It's brand new. And you're looking around what is it supposed to be reminding you of? What would it look like to you?
It is an opulent house for a king.
Okay.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's a house.
Yeah. But it's a mobile house, a tent.
The tabernacle. Well, they were all living in tents.
Yeah.
But he had the best tent.
It's the best tent, easily.
And when Solomon builds the temple, it was supposed to be the most grand dwelling there, and Solomon got a little proud and built up himself a pretty big.
Yeah, he's got a big old palace right next to it, don't he? Yeah.
But it's the king's tent.
Yeah.
And again, this is this idea of God dwelling with his people.
Yeah.
That's what he wants to do.
Yeah.
And they're going to mess it up.
Yeah.
And he makes his house, and they can't go in it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. they everywhere they go, they have to put this house up that basically no one gets to go in.
Yeah.
Because there's different layers. If you look at the pictures of the tabernacle, there's this outer barrier gate curtain thing that goes around. The people come in and out of. The priests are working out there and cutting animals open, and everything. But inside, you have this smaller tent. It's still a big tent. Kind of like the size of a small building, that's where a lot of the furniture was for it. And then inside of that, you have another section called the Holy of Holies. And that's where the ark was, right? Yeah. And so surrounding on the this smaller tent was a picture of cherubim, right?
Yeah.
flaming cherubim, right?
or seraphim.
It's cherubim.
Basically, it's once again, it's a callback to Genesis.
Yep.
When they were kicked out of the garden, the way into the garden was guarded by an angel.
Mm-hmm.
And so the way into the Holy of Holies is once again symbolically here guarded by an angel, sewn into the curtains.
Mm-hmm.
You can't go into God's presence. You're still outside.
Yep.
You can come in every once in a while.
Yep.
Once a year, one guy gets to go in there.
Yeah.
Well, Moses goes in sometimes.
Yeah.
Early on.
Yeah. And so they have this thing where it's like every layer is a barrier.
Yes.
In the tabernacle, you have like the outer gates that they get some laws about eventually that that we'll talk about, like we're cleanliness. You can't go in if certain things are going on. And then you have, but every layer there's this barrier of cherubim.
Yeah.
And so, it's supposed to remind you of what happens at the end of Genesis 3, where there's a cherubim holding the flaming sword, keeping you from the garden.
You go in, you die.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
So you have the court of the Gentiles, and which we don't really have right now. But you have an area
that's in the temple later.
Yeah. You have an area where this people can go.
Yeah.
Then you have an area where Jewish people who are clean can go. Then you have an area where the men can go.
Yep.
Then you have a place where only the Levites and priests can go. And then you have the place where only the high priest can go once a year.
Yep.
Yeah.
On
the day of
and at
atonement.
every level, there are cherubim. Like on top of the ark, there's cherubim.
Yeah.
And so it's like this reminder of God's holiness and the punishment of profaning it.
It's also that a visual reminder that you can't get as close as you want to God. You can't come in here. You cannot. Your sin separates you from God.
Yep.
You cannot come in
absolutely.
here.
There's a separation.
Even though he's living with them.
Yep.
And that's just why it's so beautiful in John. And the translations kind of miss it because it's hard. But it says,
John chapter 1.
John chapter 1, verse 14 says, and the word became flesh, and it's translated, and dwelt among us.
Yeah.
But the word is tabernacled.
Yeah, he tabernacled.
He pitched his tent with us.
Yep.
And so John is writing about this.
Yep.
He's saying God came to live with us again.
Yep.
And what happened?
And he's talking about Jesus when he says
Jesus.
That. Jesus tabernacled.
The Word in the
this.
beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. Everything was created through him, for him, and by him. And then you hop down to verse 14, and it says, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we have beheld his glory as the only Son of God, right?
Yep.
But what does he say in between? He came to his own, and his own did not receive him. They did not recognize him.
Yep.
So it's like the replay. Jesus is cranking the millennial machine
no
again.
New stories.
God is dwelling with us. Here comes Jesus. And even then, when they crank up the Jesus millennial machine, it crashes.
That's right.
Because they reject him again.
Yep. For sure.
There's one more time it's going to crank up. This time I think it's going to start.
It's going to actually start. It's going to work.
Start.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so Jesus and the tabernacle, I just pointed out to say the parallel here is God keeps wanting to live with us, and we keep saying we don't.
No, thank you.
No, thank you. And then he comes around and he's like, I'm getting as close to you as I can.
Yeah.
That's what God's saying.
Yeah.
They think, oh, God's keeping us out. He's like, no, I'm here. I'm with you.
Yeah.
You can't come in here. I'll have to kill you.
Yep.
Because you're so sinful.
Yep.
Wretched. We got to
Why
fix
is
this.
that? So I think that's a good question to ask people, or for people to think about. It's kind of a churchy thing we say, that's kind of often left unexplained, that God cannot tolerate the presence of sin. Why does he have to kill? Like, why can't you just deal with it?
Well, I think it's because we don't understand what sin is.
Yeah, well, explain it. Yeah.
It is lack of love.
Okay.
Bottom line.
Yeah.
It's the lack of love for God. Your greatest sin, dear listener, is that you don't love God and you don't love your neighbor.
Yeah.
And God hates that.
Yeah.
And you actually cannot love your neighbor until you learn to love God.
Yeah.
It's the direct correlation. And so I know you said, I do too love God. You might love him a little bit, but as long as you're still sinning, your love's not been made perfect.
Yeah.
And so the reason that God can't stand it is because you are actually wicked.
Yeah.
You are bad. You do bad stuff to people.
Yeah.
You do bad stuff to you.
It's like we think of sin like it's an unfortunate kind of consequence. It's like,
I cheated on my taxes a little bit.
I wish I wasn't so, but we're so used to tolerating it. We're tolerating the tolerability of it, right?
Yes.
That we expect God to.
It's sort of like,
but the truth is, it's not nearly as small as we wish it was.
Oh no.
You're not.
Your sins are a revelation of your selfishness and your dislove. So, like, let's say you're out playing disc golf with your good friend, and you cheat. Is that a big deal?
I think so.
It's a big deal, but why? How
big a deal?
But you'll say, oh, it's not really a sin. It's kind of, what it is, it is an exposure of something in your heart. Why are you cheating?
Yeah.
Because you want to beat your buddy and you want to do it unfair because you think you're better than him. Or you want to one up him somehow. If not, you would play fair. And you'd be like, good game, man. But the reason that cheating exists is because you're a selfish, wicked person.
Yeah.
And if you got your way and you were not restrained by the law of the land, there's no telling the end of wickedness that you would do. So we know this because every time somebody becomes a king and gets above the law, they do horrible junk.
Yeah. So let's talk about this then. So I get, like, we've kind of put out the, like, sin equals death, and like you really suck, and we ought not be here. What's the difference between God allowing us in His mercy and grace to live as we are sinners and we're all alive? What's the difference in that and then us being in His presence? Like, isn't God everywhere? What's the impulse like that? He can't stand it when we're in His some kind of direct presence.
Yeah, like, but even though He's omnipresent. Yeah, it's a weird thing because, like, God, when we say that God is everywhere, this is gonna be weird. It doesn't mean like He's physically everywhere.
Yeah,
He's not inside my Monster drink can. But
that's right. That's
present.
Called pantheism.
Yeah, he's present in the sense that He knows what's going on here. He knows what's going on everywhere. He can hear all our prayers. He knows everything. It's like a massively complex walkie-talkie or something. He just knows where, or a phone. He just knows.
Everyone's like, "What's a walkie-talkie?"
Yeah, I know. We used to have fun with him as a kid. But so He knows everything, and He is everywhere in that sense. But He dwells in a specific place.
Yeah.
And He has a house.
Yeah.
And you're not going in there sinful.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I think that's right. And I think like some of the warning in that is it's not necessarily about His ability to tolerate things. It's not about His self-control. It's about you. It's about like
It's about justice.
It's about justice. That's right. It's like, who do you think you are?
Yes.
To walk in here like that. Like, justice is going to come for you one day, no matter what. If it's here right now, or if it's in 50 years when you die, there are some things you're not gonna trespass on.
You can't. God does not sweep stuff under the rug.
Yeah,
it has to be dealt with.
That's right. Romans 3 tells us that. That I'll read it. It's a good. It's kind of a.
Jesus says that every idle word spoken will be in the judgment.
That's right.
But
He says so talking about people who have sinned and fall short of the glory of God, they are justified freely by His grace through the redemption that is in Christ Jesus. God presented Him, Jesus, as the mercy seat, which is the top of the Ark of the Covenant,
top of
by
the
the
ark
way.
Where the blood was put. Yeah, part of it.
By His blood, through faith, to demonstrate His righteousness, because in His restraint, God passed over the sins previously committed, and they were not forgotten.
No,
they were paid for in Christ's death.
They piled up. Like a debt interest. Yep. And the mercy seat, on top of the ark, there were two angels that extended their wings to cover this mercy seat. The tips of their wings touched.
Yeah.
And that was the spot where God sat. That was His throne.
I thought it was His footstool.
Well, maybe it's His footstool.
It's His footstool.
Well, it depends on the day.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so what they do is that's where the offering is made, right?
Yeah.
And Jesus, and so this debt of sin that God has overlooked from the dawn of the first one with Adam and Eve in the garden until today, it's just piled up.
Yeah.
And God didn't forget it.
Yeah, he didn't, but it was paid for in Christ.
But he will forget it.
Yeah, he will. Yeah,
Christ.
he says, yep.
If you take the atonement,
Yeah.
there's a payment been made. That's the gospel.
Yeah, that's right.
God says you've sinned and you have not reached to my glory. You haven't reached to your glory.
Yeah.
The sad part. I mean, it's just as sad.
Yeah.
When people see you, they should see God.
Yeah.
That is weird, and that sounds like blasphemy.
But it's that's the whole point. The
That's
image
the
of
whole
God.
point.
You've been made in His image.
You should be the type of person when you spoke, it would be exactly what God would say in that situation.
Yeah.
That's how God
That's who
made
you're
us to
created to be.
Yes.
Everyone's like, why did God create people? And they get lots of weird answers. Like,
You're supposed to image God.
That's it. You're representing Him.
I'll tell you what. God created people. He did not create them because He was lonely. God created people. This sounds horrible, but if you can get it, it will change your life. God created people because He is so awesome. He thought, it is a pity that other things don't get to see this, how awesome I am. And so I'm going to make creatures that can understand.
You don't have to qualify that. This sounds awful.
But if people think, it makes God a narcissist, right? Like, worship me. God is so great. He's like, I want to show. The only reason I'm making you is so you can see how great I am.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
But He is great.
Well, that's the difference. Like, if you said that.
If I said it's horrible.
Why?
Because I'm not great.
Because you're actually not great. It's a lie.
I'm actually not great.
Yeah.
Yes.
But if a truly and utterly great thing says that, it's like, well, it's just the reality.
It turns out to be a grace.
Yep.
It's sort of like if I were out
it's
here.
Love is what it is.
If I were a basketball guy, and I love to play basketball, pretend like, and Michael Jordan saw me. He was driving by, and he saw me playing basketball. He thought I could help that kid's game, and he came out and he showed me his grade. He said, "You know how I hit my jump shot? This is what I do. When I feel this guy on my hip right here, I do." And he starts telling me stuff. That is a grace. Like nobody would think, wow, how arrogant of Michael Jordan to think he could teach this kid something. Nobody would think that. That would be ridiculous.
But that's the first place people go when they think of God with that.
Yes.
Oh, because they all think they're God.
They all think they're God. So like God says, hey, I'm going to make you, and the reason you're here is to enjoy me.
Yeah.
This is why you're here. And you're like, even saying that, people be like, it's like, but wait, this is what love looks like. And this is what justice looks like. This is what patience looks like. This is what mercy looks like.
Oh, by the way, I'll show you what humility looks like.
I'll show you what humility looks like. I made you stinking zombie heads.
Yeah.
And I give you breath. Look at this. I gave you my son, right? He's worth more. I created everything through him and for him, right? And I gave him to you. And while you were killing him, I gave you breath to breathe. And you breathed that breath in your lung, and you used it to say, away with this man. We want nothing to do with him.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
That's what you did.
You used the breath of God to say,
the breath of God to say, I breathed the breath of life into your nostrils, and out of your mouth came curses. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm still going to let you live with me.
Yeah.
But you have to say you're sorry. And you have to tell me that you think my son is great because I didn't kill you.
Yeah.
And you have to believe it. And you have to believe it so hard that it changes your life. And then you say, no, thanks. Wait a second.
Because people do.
People do. And
people
then he goes,
no
hang on.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to give you a new heart.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But you're not going to be able to do that by yourself. I'm going to have to do it for you.
I'm going to have to jumpstart your heart.
Yeah.
And so what we're going to do is I'm going to open your eyes just for a second and let you see Jesus as He is and let you see you as you are. And when I do that, you're going to believe.
Yeah. Because
you're going to see it. Nobody who walks out in front of a bus and looks up and jumps out of the road brags about how smart they are. They think, woo, I just barely missed it. So when God breathes, when regeneration happens in the heart of a person through the power of the gospel, somebody tells you about the goodness of Jesus and God, and you see Jesus because the Spirit of God goes, look, or whatever He does. Boom.
Oh, yeah. Well,
and you see Jesus, you think, oh my goodness, Jesus is the Lord. He did rise from the dead. He's everything that the Bible said He was. You feel like you've just had a great epiphany. Yeah. And the Lord's like, yeah, now He sees.
Well, I mean, you think back to the story here. Every time they're changing how they're meeting with God, moving into different closeness, or, proximity to God, further up the mountain, whatever. It's always by invitation from God. they're not just like stumbling like, oh, look what I just discovered.
Yes.
The God of the universe hanging out up here on this mountain.
Yeah.
No, it's like invited in. Come in, Moses.
Yeah.
First of all, the very first time Moses meets God here, enter, take your shoes off, invitation, come in. But every single step of this is by the invitation of God. And you're not discovering God on your own.
No.
This is something that the Lord has invited you into. It's a grace and a mercy. Let me teach you how to love me is what he's saying.
I know it. It's crazy to think that you are surrounded by something all the time and cannot see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know we're all anti-supernaturalists, like in the modern world, like just by default, it's hard to get out of.
Yeah. Kind of.
You know what I mean? It's like, I think our culture just has like a very low appreciation for spiritual anything,
Yeah.
And immediate skepticism about supernatural
Even
things.
though you're literally surrounded by things that shouldn't exist all the time.
Yeah.
It makes no sense.
Yeah. Cell phones.
Cell phones. Well, I mean, just the fact that I'm speaking.
Yeah.
That is weird.
Yeah.
Like there are electrical impulses in my brain. Where is that coming from? Like somehow for me to talk to you, like if you had me hooked up, an electric charge would spark from nowhere.
Yeah.
That's weird.
It is.
And it would zip through my body right to my mouth, and I would say words that make sense to you.
Yeah.
Because these vibrations that we can measure how fast they vibrate smack your eardrum.
Yeah.
And there's a tiny, tiny bone inside your ear that wiggles when the sound hits it. And when it wiggles, it sparks another electric current that soups up in your brain. And you understand my words.
Yeah.
This stuff happens constantly.
Yeah.
And you're like, there ain't no God.
Oh my gosh!
This all happened by chance.
I know. I was talking to someone the other day about about Archer and like how no one really knows. Like when they start talking about the brain and everything,
my
they don't know. No, like the best that I use this illustration is like, that the top neurologists in the world have the parallel knowledge of the brain as the average car owner for how their car works.
Yeah.
Like the average, not a mechanic.
Yeah.
We're talking the average guy. I've checked the oil. I know how to check the oil, the fluids.
Yes.
And I know what it's supposed to sound like. That's the top neurologists in the world, what they know about the brain.
It's super complicated. And we're not putting down neurologists. They are super smart.
They know this.
Yeah.
They know this. Like we don't know.
I know.
It's like you hear, when you talk to a neurologist about like a complex issue, you're going to hear, I don't know, so many times it's ridiculous.
Well, and I'm not belittling the situation, but like Archer's an interesting case.
Yeah.
To see.
Oh, yeah.
Because when something doesn't work, sometimes we can figure out how it does work.
Yeah,
Right?
like, we've checked all the fluids.
Yeah, we've checked the fluids. We don't know. Well, how come when I'm pushing my blinker in, I'm not getting the wiper fluid? It's like, we don't know. The engine's running, but the wiper fluid's not squirting out. We don't know.
I know it.
Maybe there's a clog in here. Maybe we got something. Is there wiper fluid in there? There is wiper fluid. This is so weird.
Yep.
Yeah, it's hard. I think I've told this on here before about Amy's cousin that was the molecular biologist kind of person.
Oh, yeah.
Did I tell you this?
No, that's neat. Though.
Yeah, so I was talking to him, and his job for a while was at UAB and working on medicines. Mm-hmm. And he said, man, we watch what a medicine does on a cellular level inside a cell. So we introduce this medicine we're working on inside a specific kind of cell. Mm-hmm. And inside that cell, one cell of your body, the movements and things that happen in there are as complex as watching a car in traffic in Manhattan at rush hour. That's what's going on inside of every single cell.
Yeah.
And we're trying to figure out what happens when a piece of medicine is introduced in that environment. Mm-hmm. And we have to watch it over and over again. And sometimes, most of the time maybe, it does stuff we don't expect.
Oh, yeah.
Like we thought it was going to do this, and they were like, okay, we're going to do this for jumpy leg syndrome, right? So somebody's got a leg, it's jumping. We think we've got a muscle relaxer that's going to work it. And they put it in there, and it's just not doing what they thought. And they realized as they begin testing, it's like, It gets rid of headaches. Well, that's weird. How does it do that? We don't know. But it's safe, and it gets rid of headaches, so we're going to keep doing it.
I know. I hope no one ever has to do this stuff, but like you ever like take deep dives into medicines, like you're trying to make, understand them. Like you're going to see over and over again, we believe that this does this.
Yes.
And that's all you get on the medicines.
And look, it took them 10 years to get there.
Yeah.
10 years of like trying.
They don't know. Like they don't know the mechanism for lots of medicines. Like most of them.
Sometimes they do.
Yeah.
But like mechanism of action, we don't know why this works.
It just works.
It just works.
And especially some older medicines have been around for a long time. Mm-hmm. It's like they know it works to, like lower blood pressure or something, but they don't know how. And so that's kind of what we're talking about is like, all this mystery and that's going on in the world and, things. And yet people have the audacity to be like, I don't believe in God.
We think we know.
Yeah.
We are so dumb.
Oh,
we're not dumb. We're just ignorant.
But think we're
so
smart.
Much. We think we're smart. Becoming, considering themselves wise, they became fools and forsake the living God
Romans
for creatures
1.
of 4 legs and crawly things.
Yeah. I feel for young people and students and stuff right now. You grow up in a world that every class you go into, you hear we have the answer for everything.
Oh.
We know, I mean, there's an explanation for every single thing.
If we don't have it, we'll get it.
Yeah, we'll get it. And there's like a lot of the phrases like scientists agree and consensus, all these kind of things.
Dude.
And it's really arrogant actually, because anyone who has any kind of true expertise, you realize like, oh man, this is like way more complex and we know so little. And so there's, but if on the surface level, you're presenting all these young people with the expectation that everything is known already, and you can have complete confidence in every mechanism, all the way the world works. And so when you hear that same person say, science has disproven God or something, well, here you're primed to believe them but like without appreciating how little they know.
But
they are.
I like to, like everybody else in the world, I like to watch reels and stuff when I'm in the bathroom. And all you got to do to know that people are so full of it is just like watch nutrition reels.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Nutrition influencers.
Yeah.
The latest one I keep seeing, man, is like if you'll take off your shoes and stand on the ground.
Oh, you gotta ground yourself.
Yeah, you'll change your pH because you're putting negative circuitry through your feet.
But next week it'll be someone saying like,
wear a copper bracelet on your left wrist.
You need to make sure you always wear socks.
Yeah.
You need to insulate your feet because you're losing, chakras or something.
Like even if it is true, at this point I can't believe anything because. But some people do.
Low fat. You should never eat fat. But you need to make sure you have proper healthy fats.
Don't eat carbs.
Don't eat carbs. But you need carbs to fuel your workout.
Yeah. Don't eat carbs, but eat carbs. Don't eat meat, but eat meat.
Yeah. It's back and forth. People don't know anything, man.
But what's bad is a lot of people are making money. Telling you dumb stuff.
And if you're dear listener, if you are someone who has become skeptical about the things of God in the Bible, it's worth you thinking about who is making money off my skepticism.
Yes.
Who is profiting
off my... What do they have to gain?
Yeah.
I saw a comedian do this.
Yeah.
This was one of the funniest things I've heard. He was like, I kind of get evangelism. Like you think people, a Christian is like, hey man, this guy's going to go to hell if I don't tell him the good news of the gospel.
Yeah.
I get that motivation. Like, what are these atheists doing? Like a guy's walking down the street. This is a bit this guy did. And he's had a bad day. He's like, nobody cares about me. I don't even know if God cares. And an atheist jumps out of the bush and he goes, there is no God. There's no hope for you after life. And when you die, it's over. And the guy goes, man, I think you're right. I don't think there is a God. I think I've just been living in fantasy. Like, what did you just do to this guy? Like, why would you do that? The one thing that he had? Like, what is your motivation here? Just to make everybody else feel like the world is crappy and meaningless?
Yeah, just because you do.
How does that make you happy?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's dumb.
That's funny.
But look, man, there is a God. And he made all this stuff. And he made this I think about these things all the time. My desk is made of the same building blocks as me.
Yeah.
We know, like when you were in high school and you didn't care and you took chemistry and you looked at the element chart.
Yeah.
You know, there's only I don't even know anymore. 80 of them or something.
I think it's like 120 of them or something.
Anyway,
elements are there?
let's see. How many elements? We're going to look it up so I won't be a fountain of misinformation here. How would you ever trust me about diet if you can't get this?
I took like Chem 2 and Chem 3 in college. I forgot this all.
Yeah.
How
many are on there?
118.
Okay, 118. There are only in the building blocks, if you wanted to make a universe, not just your world
There might
or
be some more
your
beyond
your can of soda.
Yeah.
118 things to assemble.
Yeah.
Right? That's all you got. And this table is made out of some of those 118 elements, and so am I.
Just a couple of them though.
Yeah, not many.
Mostly carbon.
And so what the heck is the difference between me and this table? It's really not a lot.
Yeah. Molecularly.
Not a lot.
Yeah.
How come I can't stick my hand through it? Well, it's the same principle as magnets. The reason you can't push north and north magnets together is because the atoms repel one another, the electrons and the charge. The reason you can't stick your hand through this table is because basically magnets.
Okay.
So, but I mean, we just take that stuff. Why is it when I throw a baseball up in the air, it comes back down?
Okay. I've lost your point. Unfortunately, I can't remember what you're going with.
No,
this.
the point is that we don't believe in the miraculous.
Oh yeah, I got you.
And yet it is really
You're like, I can't put my hand through this table because of magnets.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, because of magnetism, electrons. Like you have actually never touched a table. That is just the pressure of the charges pushing back against each other.
That's so fun to think about.
It's so bizarre. You've never touched anything.
Yeah, ever.
What's happening is it's like pushing at a molecular level back up so that you won't stick your finger through your other finger.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, miracles can't exist. Yeah. It's like, what? Dude, you are a walking...
you are millions of miracles happening right now.
There are a trillion atoms in your body.
Yeah.
Individual cells.
Yeah.
Each individual cell, there's like a trillion cells or something in your body. It's something like that. Every single one of them is doing their own thing.
Yeah.
And somehow they're all connected to you and stay together. And does this hand know what my brain's thinking?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how this is working. This is weird. But God is a step too far.
Yeah, you got a step too far.
God's a step too far, buddy. That's just stupid stuff.
All right. Hey,
Jesus walked on the water.
Yeah.
Big whoop.
Yeah, that's right.
It's not even a big deal, man. Like if you said, okay, I will tell you how Jesus walked on the water or how brains work. I think figuring out how brains work is probably would be more mind-blowing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's wrap it up. We've gone on long about all this. So that is the tabernacle and all that kind of stuff when he's giving it to him. Next week, we're going to talk about what happens kind of in the tabernacle with consecration, and then also what happens when he comes down off the mountain.
I love it. It's one of my favorite moments in the Bible.
So we'll save all of it. Yeah.
When he talks to Aaron, when he comes down, he
Yeah.
said, what just happened?
Yeah. So we'll talk about that next week on the Big Deal podcast. Everyone, thank you so much for listening to this craziness this morning.
Man. Well, when he comes down the mountain, it's like Elon Musk and Doge coming in your office. It's like, uh-oh.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
We got to have some accountability
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. We'll see y'all later.
See ya.